ma'am. Please start, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Hi, this is Dr. Ritu Sekhri here, and today I'll be taking your MPC04 Advanced Social Psychology topic. And we will start with the introduction of what is social psychology, why do we call it as that it is scientific in nature, and certain aspect or the basic processes that are related with social psychology. I hope I'm audible to all. Is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. तो
Yes, ma'am.
सबसे पहले हम ये जानना चाहेंगे कि सोशल साइकोलॉजी हम सबको पता है व्हाट इज सोशल साइकोलॉजी इट इज द साइंटिफिक स्टडी ऑफ ह्यूमन बिहेवियर और एन एनिमल इन रिलेशन टू एनवायरनमेंट बट एट द सेम टाइम जहाँ सोशल नाम जुड़ जाता है तो देन वी टॉक अबाउट एन इंडिविजुअल इन अ सोसाइटी इन अ ग्रुप इन अ कम्युनिटी इन अ ट्राइब सो वी हैव डिफरेंट सोशल साइकोलॉजिस्ट जिन्होंने सोशल साइकोलॉजी को बहुत ब्यूटिफुली ब्रीफली डिफाइन किया है और उसमें से देयर इज वन साइकोलॉजिस्ट कॉल्ड फ्लॉयड ऑलपोर्ट जिसने कहा कि सोशल साइकोलॉजी इज अ साइंटिफिक स्टडी ऑफ द एक्सपीरियंस एंड द बिहेवियर ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स इन रिलेशन टू अदर इंडिविजुअल्स ये बिल्कुल सही बात है बिकॉज हम बिहेवियर को कभी भी वैक्यूम में स्टडी नहीं कर सकते वी नीड टू हैव एन एनवायरनमेंट where we can study the interaction of the person and the environment, and the result is the behavior. Then we also know that social psychology is scientific in nature. Now, when I am saying scientific in nature, इसका मतलब कि हम scientific empirical evidences पे अपनी research conduct करते हैं जब हम social psychology का कोई भी method use करते हैं. अभी रिसेंट एग्जाम्पल मैं आपको कोरोना वायरस की ऑफ कोर्स आई थिंक कोरोना बहुत बार नाम आएगा ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज अ सेंसिटिव थिंग बट वी हैव टू टेक द लेटेस्ट एग्जाम्पल बहुत सारे सर्वे हुए बहुत सारे रिसर्चेस कंडक्ट किए गए एंड जब हम सर्वे की बात करते हैं तो सर्वे हमने वैक्यूम में कंडक्ट नहीं करा बहुत सारी ऑब्जर्वेशंस नोट डाउन हुई दोज ऑल ऑब्जर्वेशंस एंड द सर्वे रिपोर्ट्स वर कंडक्टेड विद इन द एनवायरनमेंट एंड ऑन पीपल इटसेल्फ. So how do we conduct that? With the help of careful observations, which means observation method plays a very important role in social psychology. Then when we gather those observations, हम उस observations को integrate करते हैं, synchronize करते हैं, so that we can formulate a general principle. Now what do we mean by general principle? क्योंकि जब हम कोई research या survey conduct करते हैं हम उनमें से जो भी फाइंडिंग्स हमारी रिजल्टेंट निकलती हैं वी ट्राई टू जनरलाइज दैट फॉर एग्जांपल नाउ वी आर फॉलोइंग द 5th लॉकडाउन एंड हमारे प्रीवियस रिसर्चर्स जो रहे होंगे जो हेल्थ वर्कर्स को-वर्कर्स और बहुत दिग्गज लोगों ने जो रिसर्चेस कंडक्ट करी होंगी उनके बिहाफ पे भी हम फ्यूचर ऑब्जर्वेशंस को फॉलो कर रहे हैं कि ओके इफ 4 लॉकडाउन्स हैव बीन कंडक्टेड एंड दीज वर द रिजल्ट्स. So on behalf of 4 observations उस lockdown की, we are predicting the future observation that's the 5th lockdown. और उसमें हमें क्या मिला है कि certain phases have been reopened with the help of SOP, steps of precautions. So when we talk about the social psychology is scientific in nature, we cannot ignore a renowned psychologist, Kurt Lewin. I'll spell it out, Kurtlewin. A Soviet or psychologist, primarily working on social, organizational, and industrial branches of psychology. He developed a heuristic formula. Heuristic formula is an algebra formula. जिसमें उसने कहा what is behavior? Simple. Behavior is the function of person and environment. And सबसे अच्छी बात social psychology की ये है, we don't throw judgments. We try to find out what causes a person to behave like this, which means social psychology also studies the causes of social behavior. It explains and analyzes the causes. For example, the actions and the characteristics of others. यहाँ पे I would like to quote an example because lockdown था and academic research के साथ साथ one would like to entertain herself or himself. So I was watching a short series kind of a thing on a Prime Video, Amazon पे, Patal Lok. That's a recent one that I have watched. And there's a character called Hathoda Tyagi. If you ever get a chance to view that series, you must watch it. You know, you learn a lot from this media entertainment channels also. So what I wanted to say is कि अगर किसी का behavior हमें different लगता है, I won't say negative, positive, because I don't have the right to say that on a very first go without analyzing anything. So which means if a person is behaving or having a criminal tendencies, that means there must be a reason. There must be some cause. A cause can be an action or a person itself. The basic cognitive processes can be a memory, maybe a belief, maybe my value system. Like, you know, personality is dynamic in nature. What you were like long time before, आज आप ऐसे नहीं है. कभी कभार हमें खुद में ऐसा लगता है कि जो 10 साल पहले मेरा सोच था, why I am totally different today. Why? Because we are always, you know, one way or the other introspecting our own values, our own beliefs. So it helps us to understand ourselves in a better manner and become a refined form of ourselves. Then also, हमारा physical environment plays a very important role. कि मैं social psychology की बात कर रही हूँ, तो जो मेरा social behavior होगा, वो मेरे environment से effect जरूर हुआ होगा. अगर हम बिल्कुल पोलर रीजन्स की बात करें जहां पे एक्सट्रीम विंटर चिली सीजन रहता है, सनलाइट बहुत कम देखने को मिलता है, तो अक्सर हम देखते हैं उन लोगों में एक अजीब सा रिजर्व्ड इनहिबिटेड सा बिहेवियर रहता है. एंड अगर हम अपनी ही बात कर लें, लाइक टुडे वी हैड अ वेरी गुड रेनफॉल, प्लेजेंट मौसम था, तो हमारा जो मूड डिपेंडेंट बिहेवियर है वो काफी ज्यादा रेगुलेटेड था. Now I'm going to talk about what is the scope of social psychology. Am I audible to everyone? Hello?
मैं करता हूँ बात. प्लीज लर्नर्स, आप लोगों से विशेष रूप से रिक्वेस्ट है कि अपने माइक को म्यूट करके रखा करें. आपकी निजी बातें भी फिर यहाँ पे हो जाती हैं और सारी कक्षा में डिस्टर्बेंस पैदा हो जाता है. अभी एक मम्मी बच्चे को डांट रही थी, तो प्लीज थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखें इस चीज का. आपकी ही बात बाहर निकलती है, वो अच्छा नहीं लगता. सभी ध्यान रखेंगे, अपने माइक को म्यूट करके रखेंगे. और अदरवाइज कोई विद्यार्थी अगर बार बार तंग करेगा तो उसको फिर हम कक्षा से बाहर निकाल देंगे, जैसे छोटे बच्चे को निकाल देते हैं ना, ऐसे करना पड़ेगा फिर हमारे को. प्लीज मैम कंटिन्यू.
हाँ जी, थैंक यू सर. सो अभी तक तो हमने सिर्फ डेफिनेशंस डिस्कस करे थे और कुछ हमने कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स डिस्कस करे थे ये सोशल साइकोलॉजी, एडवांस सोशल साइकोलॉजी के. नाउ आई विल टॉक अबाउट द स्कोप. I think repetitively I'm using one sentence ke, you know, it tries to understand or initiate or interpret the behavior and experience of the others, and that also in relation to other individuals. Now when I'm saying in relation to other individuals, जरूरी नहीं है कि उनकी presence उस वक्त required है. कभी कभार हमें किसी person के thoughts या किसी की physical presence नहीं, imagined presence जो है, जो हम खुद महसूस करते हैं, उसके कारण भी हमारे बिहेवियर में चेंजेस नजर आते हैं. यहाँ पे मैं एक स्केल की बात करूंगी. इनिशियली वैसे तो हम उसको पर्सनालिटी टेस्ट के लिए यूज करते हैं. दैट्स कॉल्ड एज रॉटर्स लोकस ऑफ कंट्रोल. रॉटर ने ये टेस्ट बनाया था और उसने कहा था कि अगर आपने किसी की पर्सनालिटी को असेस करना है तो देयर आर 3 डोमेन्स. वन डोमेन इज इंडिविजुअल डोमेन, कि आई एम रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस एक्ट. अनदर डोमेन इज पावरफुल अदर्स, कि दूसरे जो हैं मेरे ऊपर बहुत इन्फ्लुएंस डालते हैं, जिनके कारण मैं अपने डिसीजंस को उस तरह से लेता हूं. एंड थर्ड इज द चांस फैक्टर. चांस फैक्टर, डेस्टिनी. आई एम श्योर हम सब में से बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग होंगे जो इन तीनों डोमेन्स में फॉल करते होंगे. कभी कभार बच्चों में ये अक्सर देखने को मिलता है, व्हेन दे डोंट गेट गुड मार्क्स, तो वो जनरली एक्सक्यूज दे देते हैं कि मैम ने अच्छे से पढ़ाया नहीं था, या जो पेपर आया that was out of syllabus. So you are not putting yourself as responsible for that action, but someone else. At times हमारे घरों में लाइटर नोट पे हम ये भी बोल देते हैं, आज मैंने उसका चेहरा देखा इसलिए आज मेरा काम नहीं बना. हम बोल देते हैं, लेकिन हमारे मन ही मन में, subliminal perception में, we have deep rooted thoughts कि the other person is so much powerful on your thoughts that your actions are being controlled by the other person. So with the help of social psychology, we try to find out कि ऐसा क्या है कि जो दूसरों के इन्फ्लुएंस में आके हम कभी कभार कंफर्म कर जाते हैं किसी के साथ, हम कभी अपने ही एटीट्यूड्स को चेंज कर लेते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, सेल्स पर्सन आते हैं, वी ऑल यूज डिफरेंट कॉस्मेटिक्स, डिफरेंट क्रीम्स, शैम्पूज, कोई आप ईटिंग फूड प्रोडक्ट्स ले लीजिए, और हर एक की अपनी अपनी डेफिनेशन होगी कि हम ये क्यों प्रोडक्ट यूज करते हैं, ये क्यों यूज करते हैं. Why? Because we are strongly convinced by the other person कि उसने ये बोला है with strong conviction, अच्छा ही होगा. And this is how हमारे attitudes change भी होते हैं. Not just कि हमारे behavior को influence किया जाता है, rather individual behavior, whatever I am behaving like, उसका effect other लोगों पे भी होगा. सिर्फ मेरे ऊपर दूसरों का असर नहीं है, लेकिन मेरे बिहेवियर का भी दूसरों पे ऊपर असर होगा. यहाँ पे आई वुड वांट टू कोट एन एग्जांपल, वर्क प्लेस सेटिंग्स, लीडरशिप स्किल्स वेयर यू हैव टू टेक ग्रुप डिसीजंस. फॉर एग्जांपल, लॉकडाउन के दौरान बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूशंस बंद रहे, चाहे आप वो एकेडमिक ले लीजिए, आप कोई भी सेंटर ले लीजिए. फॉर एग्जांपल, आई एम द अथॉरिटी किसी इंस्टीट्यूशन के लिए, तो मेरा जो भी डिसीजन होगा वो मेरे वर्क प्लेस को, मेरे एम्प्लॉयज को, मेरे एम्प्लॉयर्स पे इफेक्ट डालेगा. विच मीन्स मेरा पॉजिटिव बिहेवियर या मेरा नेगेटिव बिहेवियर या मेरा न्यूट्रल बिहेवियर इज गोइंग टू इफेक्ट अदर पर्सन्स ऑल्सो. अब अगर मैं सोशल साइकोलॉजी की बात कर रही हूं तो मैं ग्रुप की बात ना करूं, ऐसा हो नहीं सकता है. अगेन, कर्ट लेविन इज द, यू कैन से द फाउंडर और द फादर ऑफ ग्रुप डायनामिक्स. हम सब लोग छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स में एग्जिस्ट होने की कोशिश करते हैं, और बहुत जल्दी हम अपने आप को एक ग्रुप में डिफाइन कर लेते हैं कि दिस इज माय ग्रुप, दिस इज द अदर ग्रुप. इन ग्रुप, आउट ग्रुप, लाइक्ड ग्रुप, अनलाइक्ड ग्रुप. क्योंकि हम बिहेवियर को एनालाइज करते हैं ग्रुप में, विच मीन्स अगर मैं एक ग्रुप का पार्ट बन जाती हूं तो मेरा जो बिहेवियर है वो मेरे बाकी के ग्रुप मेंबर्स को भी इफेक्ट करेगा. हो सकता है मैं अपने ग्रुप के लिए बहुत ही ज्यादा पॉजिटिव फीलिंग्स रखती हूँ, लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम दिस इज ऑल्सो पॉसिबल आई एम नॉट कैरिंग अ वेरी गुड इमेज फॉर द अदर ग्रुप. That is why we have a competitive feeling, rivalry feeling, animosity between the groups also. Which means कि social psychology को हम कहते हैं कि sociology से कैसे different है कि भाई यहाँ पे जो target population है social psychology में वो individual है, and sociology on a larger scale society, community को study कर रहा है. लेकिन at the same time individual behavior कितने लोगों को affect कर रहा है. एक और चीज जो सोशल साइकोलॉजी की अगर हम कह रहे हैं कि इंडिविजुअलाइजेशन जो है या इंडिविजुअलिज्म एक इनहेरेंट प्रॉपर्टी है सोशल साइकोलॉजी की, तो हम दो प्रिंसिपल्स पे फोकस करते हैं. वन इज हेडोनिज्म, प्लेजर, मैक्सिमम प्लेजर, रिड्यूसिंग द पेन, एंड अनदर इज यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म. व्हाट डज दैट मीन? आई विल गो विद द मेजॉरिटी. हम कभी कभार बोल देते हैं ओके, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स आर हैप्पी इन दिस डिसीजन, okay, I'll also go, I'll flow with the wind. So individualism के साथ हम ये दो principles को भी follow करते हैं. Now if I talk about the historical development के जो advent हुआ था modern social science का, तो पहले initially सिर्फ दो ही thoughts थे हमारे पास, Platonic, Plato के, and the other was Aristotelian. Now Platonic thought was कि society plays a primary role than an individual. So it is foremost important कि हम सोसाइटी को एक लिबरल, एडुकेटेड बनाने की कोशिश करें. लेकिन अगर मैं एरिस्टोटेलियन की बात करूं, एरिस्टोटल की, तो वो थोड़ा इंडिविजुअल सेंटर्ड अप्रोच रखता था. ही सेड कि जो ह्यूमन बीइंग है, ही इज अ सोशल एनिमल, यू नो. सो अगर हम उसको सोशल एनिमल कह रहे हैं या ही सोशल बाय नेचर बोल रहे हैं, तो नेचर के पास इतनी शक्ति है कि वो इंडिविजुअल को इकट्ठा रहना सिखाएगी, उसके रिलेशनशिप्स की डेवलपमेंट कराएगी, और जहां तक फैमिलीज और ट्राइब्स और कम्युनिटीज बनेंगी तो वो इंडिविजुअल एक इंडिविजुअल नहीं रहेगा, एक होलिस्टिक एस्पेक्ट पे सोसाइटी बन जाएगी. देन in the process of branching off, so when I'm saying कि social psychology directly psychology से नहीं निकला था, बहुत शिक्कत, बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ी, क्योंकि जब हम ब्रांचेस ऑफ साइकोलॉजी की बात करते हैं तो वी हैव नंबर ऑफ ब्रांचेस. So when we were laying off the branch, this social psychology, so we realized that there are, separate disciplines being followed. People psychology, mass psychology. अब people psychology में विलियम वुंड, जिन्होंने लिप्जिग में अपना पहला जो एक लेबोरेटरी स्टैब्लिश किया एंड इंट्रोस्पेक्शन मेथड पे बहुत काम किया, he said, William Woon, that people psychology is actually a physiological psychology and also people psychology. फिजियोलॉजिकल साइकोलॉजी को उन्होंने एक्सपेरिमेंट्स पे डिफाइन करा कि वी आर कंडक्टिंग एक्सपेरिमेंट्स एंड वी आर गेटिंग द रिजल्ट्स. पीपल साइकोलॉजी को विलियम वुड ने बोला इट इज बेस्ड ऑन लैंग्वेज, आर्ट, मिथ्स, क्राफ्ट्स. So one way or the other, it cannot be intervened together. Then we have Vygotsky. Now Vygotsky.
एक मिनट के लिए मैं रोकना चाहूंगा मैम. अधिकतर बच्चे शायद इंग्लिश में इंटरेस्टेड है मैम, तो बीच में हल्की सी हिंदी की बाइट रख लेना, लेकिन ज्यादातर थोड़ा सा अंग्रेजी में, क्योंकि ये इंग्लिश मीडियम ही है, तो एक दो बच्चा ही होगा जो हिंदी में थोड़ा सा सुनना चाहेगा.
चलिए ठीक है सर,
रिक्वेस्ट है मैम.
हाँ, नो प्रॉब्लम सर, ठीक है, नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम.
बच्चों जैसे चाह रहे हैं मैम वैसे ही.
नो प्रॉब्लम सर.
ओके मैम, प्लीज प्लीज मैम.
राइट सर. So I was talking about Vygotsky. He was a developmental psychologist, and he had done a lot of work on psychological development in children. And he believed that, the function of the child's intercultural development occurs at two levels. Again, that's the one level is the social level. When I'm talking about the social level, you remember हम ये अभी people psychology की बात कर रहे हैं. So when I'm talking about the social level, it means inter-psychological interactions, you and me, interpersonal. When I'm talking about the individual level, Vygotsky says that's the intra-individual. I'm talking to myself, I'm introspecting myself. So this is how we were laying off the branch, the social, from the psychology itself. When I talk about the mass psychology, where people, individual is not the focus, but there we have the predominance of emotions, not the intellect. We are not talking about an individual person, but we are talking on the holistic aspect or a societal aspect. Now, the beginning of this experimental research actually started with the 20th century, the early 20th century, especially the period after the very first World War. That has been considered as a metamorphosis for the social psychology development. Along with this, if I focus on the basic processes that we have been talking about, there are different branches of social psychology, interdisciplinary and intradisciplinary. We have social psychology with anthropology. We have social psychology with educational psychology. We have you can say a bit of it with different branches. Why? Because I think social is existing everywhere. After all, we live in a society. Now, when I talk about the basic processes of social psychology, I would want to refer here a term called attribution. How do people make sense of information they have about an individual to form an overall impression? And how that information is stored and organized into our memory? How am I going to remember, oh, that is the person, okay, this is the one whom I met last time? So apart from this, the social cognition also help people explain the causes of both their own and others' behavior. Why am I behaving like this? Why the other person is behaving like this with me? There are two kind of cues when we try to understand attributional causes. One is the situational causes. And I think that goes for us, for an individual person. When I'm going to explain my behavior, so and so occur, oh, actually, the environment, the external cues are responsible for that. But at the same time, when I'm going to judge or throw an opinion for the other person, I will believe it is a dispositional trait. When I talk about the dispositional trait, it means the fundamental attribution error, which means I am focusing on the trait not the situation. And when I'm going to describe my own behavior, why does this happen? Then I'm going to talk about the external causes. So before I start with how people form person's perception, I would want to explain an experiment conducted by Harold Kelly in 1951. So there were two groups of students, and both the groups were briefed about the personality of the lecturer, and the one group were given certain typical words like, a lecturer is going to come and deliver a lecture, and the qualities that a lecturer is having, one is warm, he's a warm person, he's industrious, critical, practical, and determined. So these were the traits which were told to one of the group. The other group was told that the lecturer is cold, industrious, critical, practical, determined. Mind it, the only difference between the words is warm and the cold. Now, the word warm substituted for this cold made a drastic change actually. Why? Because the central traits play a very important role. So when the students finally were asked to just write a paragraph or just let us know how do you find the lecturer, so the groups that were told that the lecturer is cold, industrious, practical, critical, determined, they portrayed the characteristics or the personality of the lecturer on that behalf. So which means that these traits play a very important role. So when I am going to say this, oh, so-and-so person is, he's a very generous, adventurous, friendly. So I think I'm talking about all the positive, energetic, motivated words, and you are going to, comprehend the person as it is. And what if I'm using, he's timid, shy, irritable, choleric person, always sad. This is how we attribute our causes to other person's behavior, and this is how we form the impressions. Two models play a very important role when I say that, okay, this is how we form the impressions. There are two kind of models, and उनको हम cognitive algebra भी कहते हैं. One is additive model, and the other is averaging model. Now, the additive model has the quality of adding up all the positive traits, and that will lead to positive impression. He's good, he's extrovert, he's cheerful, he's lively, he's adventurous, he's friendly, he's loyal, he's reliable. So many of positive traits, definitely I'm going to say, okay, I know he's a very good person. Finally, given my opinion, he's a very good person. Now, the next model that I'm going to talk about is the averaging model. Averaging model, apart from adding up the traits, we also look upon the nature of the traits. For example, adventureness is given 4 marks, industrious is given 5, neat is given 2. So this neat 2 can drop down the level when we assess the personality or the overall impression of the person. So averaging model is quite a lot, you can say, usable when we are forming the impressions, but we do consider what kind of trait is being talked about, what is the nature of that trait, and that is how we rate the individuals. Of course, this is some kind of a subjective judgment that we throw, but mind it, we ought to change our information or the impression of the other person time and again when we get the latest information. Today, I have an opinion or I have formed an impression of a person like, maybe I would not like to work with him or her, but later on, if I receive something useful or some positive or motivational information about that person, I won't hesitate to change my impression for that person. So that's the difference. Impression formation also has two kinds of effects. One is primacy and another is recency effect. Now, primacy is I am already briefing you or conditioning you with so and so traits. At times, आपके घर पे किसी guest ने आना है, or you have been given a new assignment, you will ask your boss or your friend, just brief me. What is it all about? Or you're going for a date, or you're going to meet someone, you'll say, just brief me what kind of person he or she is, so that I will behave accordingly. So if I say, okay, the person is, extrovert, he's vigilant, quite a lot, you can say sensitive, I guess you are going to behave accordingly, right? Now, the recency information is the second evaluation following the presentation of the new information. Okay, what if you say, you told me that he's a very sensitive person? I don't find that so, because he has been or she has been using those words or talking about all that illogical stuff that was not even required. So the latest information, the second evaluation, will help you to redefine your impression formation for the other person. And why are we discussing this? Tell me, it is why do we need this primacy effect, recency effect? Because yes, this is how we judge. This is how we form impressions. This is how we call our personality or the other person's personality as dynamic. Now we also have schemas. I am sure you must have heard this word schemas. We call it as, it's not schemas, it is schemas. Generally, this word comes under cognitive psychology when we are talking about the mental representations. What if right now I say the sunset? All of a sudden, you can imagine what I'm talking about. The sunset? Okay, the sun, ball, red color, just setting down itself. What if I say an apple? So the mental representations have been stored in our long-term memory since long. And with the help of these schemas, we are going to carry the image or a personality of a person with us into more meaningful wholes, I can say. The shorter version of schemas are called as prototypes. Prototypes. Now, these are the schemas only, and they organize a group of personality traits into meaningful personality type. Teachers, librarians, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend. So this is how we talk about other persons. Now, attribution theory is also concerned with how individuals interpret events and how this relates to their thinking and behavior. If I'm not wrong, when we study Carl Roger, I think after mass law, he was the one who has talked about this directive, non-directive therapy or good enough theory. We have been talking about psychotherapy. I'm sure you all are aware about psychotherapy, that there is some problem in our subconscious or unconscious mind, right? Now, when I'm talking about this Carl Rogers, why I quoted him, because we say all human beings are good by nature. It's just the situation that the person is misinterpreted at times. Now, Heider here, Heider, Heider or Heider you can say. In 1958, he was the first one to propose a psychological theory of attribution, but eventually Weiner, 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 he developed a theoretical framework as a major paradigm of social psychology. And he said that there is a principle of attributing a cause or interpreting an event or a situation. And that principle is called as covariation principle. Now, this covariation principle says we try to analyze the behavior or the situation in which the person is behaving on the basis of three types of causes. And those causes are: one, the individual itself, the actor, the person. Second, can be the targeted behavior. Third, the circumstance. These three causes will help us to interpret the situation or the event. Apart from this, we also need to have three kinds of information. When I am going to observe a person, for example, I'm not happy with my co-fellow. Now, before saying anything about him, I would want to see, is he behaving the same way with other individuals also? or he's just behaving like this, like in a specific situation. Maybe he's not happy today. Maybe his situation, he's not feeling good today. Maybe a dispositional factor, right? Another can be the situation. Is that so? That whenever there is a situation, when there is a turmoil, he's behaving like this? Or else, other than that, he's normal? So those three kind of information we also called as three C's, C for cat. So those three C's are, number one, consensus, Consensus. Now, what is consensus? Degree to which other people react similarly in the same situation. No matter, ऐसा नहीं है कि he is the only one. Even if there is someone else, my friend, my family member, he or she is also going to behave in the same way. That's called consensus. Consistency is the another C. Now, consistency says degree to which the actor behaves the same way in other situations, that his behavior is going to be the same, no matter how much effort you put into it. Third, distinctiveness, extent to which same behavior occurs in relation to other people or stimuli. That I'm not the only one that he's behaving like this. मेरी जगह कोई और भी होता, it would have been the same. That's called as the covariation principle. Then, as we know, that when we are interpreting the events or analyzing the individuals, we cannot ignore the errors or the biases that we go through. As I said before, we have a fundamental attribution error. When we see someone acting friendly toward another person, our inclination is to assume that is a friendly person. He is outgoing. He is very good. Maybe he is not. Maybe he is an introvert or a shy person. But the genuinity or maybe the gregarious behavior the other person have can be a reason that that introvert person is talking in a very friendly manner. What are we doing? We are putting an error while attributing the personality or the behavior of the person. Why? Because we have certain traits and we are formulating our, cause for his behavior in the same manner. Apart from this attribution, we have halo effects. That's called it HALO, halo effects. Now, the halo effect is the phenomena in which the initial familiarity that a person has, positive traits, is used to infer other uniformly positive characteristics. I think this halo effect we get through everywhere. We can see that even at our workplaces. At times we say boss is partial, ma'am is partial, the so and so person is partial. Why? Maybe the person, the employee, is not good in that particular zone, but just because overall impression has been formed as he is good or she is good. So every activity, every task is being initiated by the same person. I'm never been given a chance to take the lead. So the competitiveness, the rivalry, or we can say the workplace settings are also affected by these kind of errors that we called as halo effects or the fundamental attribution error. If I talk about the modern social science, I'm just summing up this topic. तेजपाल जी, मैं अब बिल्कुल खत्म करने वाली हूँ इस टॉपिक को. We are almost on the end of it.
ओके मैम. मैम कोशिश अगर हो जाए थोड़ा सा अभी और, क्योंकि सेशन छोटा हो जाएगा मैम. अच्छा, मुझे कहा गया था कि 1 आवर के अकॉर्डिंग प्रिपेयर करना है, नहीं तो मेरे पास तो बहुत कुछ था आज डिस्कस करने के लिए. मैम अभी 40 मिनट हुए हैं. कोई बात नहीं सर, आई हैव मेनी अदर थिंग्स टू डिस्कस. ओके मैम, ओके, प्लीज कंटिन्यू. हाँ जी. So, apart from these errors, ये तो एक एस्पेक्ट था जो मैंने आपके साथ सोशल साइकोलॉजी में सोशल कॉग्निशन डिस्कस करा, एट्रीब्यूशन एरर्स डिस्कस करे. We also have different branches. We also know where the social psychology is going these days. If I talk about health psychology and social psychology, so we can see there is a
great interest of health workers to take the societal aspect and to work on it. There are different kind of analysis, people analysis, societal analysis. The amalgamation is totally different. We have different books coming up with this social psychology branch. Why? Because people want to work into it. They want to see what all things we can do in particularly social psychology. So if you give me just 5 minutes, I have a model which I would want to discuss with you apart from this social psychology domain. And I think that's going to be very good if we just talk about it right now. There's a particular method that's called as ethnography. You see, we follow different methods. We talk about observation method. We also talk about experimental method, survey method as being the main domain we have. There's another method right nowadays we are using that's called the ethnography method, in which we try to write about the person or the historical event or any situation that have already been occurred. So if I talk about this lockdown period or the coronavirus, I think maximum social psychologists are using this method called as ethnography. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm almost with that method. Just need 5 minutes more to talk about it. Yes. So this ethnography is a written description of a particular culture, the custom, the beliefs, the behavior based on information collected through fieldwork. Mind it, you must have heard that's called as quasi-experimental method. Initially, we have been using quasi-experimental method. The events have already been occurred. Nowadays, people are working on this ethnography. So this ethnography, ethnos means, in Greek, it means folk, F-O-L-K, or people, and graphia means for writing. So it is the art and science of describing a group or a culture. So if you see certain documentaries these days, we have a lot of things on ethnographic studies. The description may be of a small tribal group in an exotic land or a classroom in a middle class suburbia. Nowadays, in social psychology, we follow qualitative research methodology. We all know quantitative methods were the ratings given all the time, but now ethnography is a method being called as a qualitative or a content analysis kind of a work. Now, this ethnography has its roots in anthropology and sociology. And in recent years, it has become a far more researched model in social psychology. The ethnographer participates actively in the research environment, but does not structure it. I will participate into it. I'm not going to formulate it. I'm going to observe the events and jot it down as it is. Its approach is discovery based, and the aim being to depict the activities. Now, what are the steps we follow while following the or while doing the ethnographic method? It starts with the selection of a culture, the review of the literature pertaining to the culture and the identification of different variables. The ethnographic then goes about gaining entrance, which in turn sets the stage for cultural immersion. It is not unusual for ethnographers to live in the culture for months or even years. It is really difficult. The middle stages of the ethnographic method involves gaining informants, using them to gain yet more information, gathering the data in the form of observational transcripts. As I said that we have been using observation methods, and also we use certain kind of transcript method. Then data analysis and theory development comes to the end. Though theories may emerge from cultural immersions, theory articulation by members of the culture is also done. So the present day practitioners, they usually conduct ethnographies in organizations, in communities of all kinds. They try to study schools, public health, rural and urban development, consumers, consumer goods, any human arena. While particularly suited to exploratory research, we can draw a wide range of qualitative and quantitative methodologies, moving from learning to testing, while research problems, perspectives, emerging new theories and concepts. Then, if not this, now what are the characteristics of ethnography? Now, gathering data from the range of sources, different range of sources, is also a task. We cannot rely on one domain. We need to have different kind of samples with us, which can really help us. So for that, we can use different kind of samplings, snowball sampling, because if we are covering a big geographical location, we need to have kind of resources who can go on our behalf and help us provide us the information. Studying behavior in everyday context rather than experimental conditions, because experimental conditions, did an experiment, these are the results, that is it. At times, the subjective feelings play a very important role. Then, comprising an in-depth study of one or two situations. It's just not that, okay, today I did a research, I observed a culture, a tribe, or a community, and tomorrow I'm going to submit my report as it is. कि भाई एक अफ्रीकन ट्राइब में या एक अफ्रीकन कल्चर में ये पर्टिकुलर ट्राइब है जिसमें ये कुछ ऐसे customs they are following and so is the result. No. Nowadays we prefer going, trying, कि if we can have an in-depth understanding and one-to-one interaction. Generally people there don't allow, they don't allow us, encourage us to take photographs or record the information, but one can try for that also at the same time. Of course, we have to use a very unstructured approach in this because the systematic structure is quite a lot difficult and tedious task for that. Then once you have selected the culture, you study different observational schedules along with it. We have other different methods also for carrying this ethnography, not just the observation. There are basically two methods, macro and micro. The macro ethnography is the study of broadly defined cultural groupings such as the Indians. And micro is the subsystem. For example, young working class women. So zaruri nahi hai, it's not any compulsion to go on a very wider aspect. You can also start your research in social psychology with a small domain, that's the microethnography. Emic perspective is the another ethnographic research. That's the approach to way the members of the given culture perceive their world. The Emic perspective is usually the main focus of ethnography. We have situational reduction as well, a part of the method of ethnography only. Now in situational reduction, here the views of ethnographers are that social structures and social dynamics, they emerge from and may be reduced analytically to the accumulated effects of the micro-situational interactions. I think cosmos is the best understood in microcosm. We have symbols in ethnographic research, art, clothing, material artifact, a culture. Now this ethnographer strives to understand the cultural connotations associated with symbols, technology, for example, in terms of how it relates to an implied plan to bring about a different desired state for the culture. Cultural patterning is the another method in ethnography. The observation of cultural patterns. We cannot ignore culture if we are talking about social psychology actually. So the cultural patterns forming relationships, it involves two or more symbols. Ethnographic research is holistic on a wider aspect, believing that symbols cannot be understood in isolation. So we cannot use a structural system in ethnography. We need to do this on the holistic approach. We need to understand the elements in the research as a whole. And for that, we use a method called conceptual mapping. using the terms of members of the culture themselves to relate symbols across varied forms of behavior and in varied context. Apart from cognitive mapping, we need to go to learning processes also. In order to understand how a culture transmits what it perceives to be important across different generations. One after the another generation is using the same pattern. How do they do about it? Now, the third method is to focus on sanctioning processes. Now, sanctioning processes in order to understand which cultural elements are formally, like legally, prescribed or prescribed and which are informally prescribed. One can be being formally prescribed when we are going through these sanctioning processes. कि हम कौन से methods, कौन से processes को use कर सकते हैं अपनी study में, which are legally asked to do, and which those are informal. But of course, if I want to have an in-depth understanding of some culture, person, or a tribe, I would like to take that informal grant or sanction also, because that is going to help me further. There is another term called meta-analysis. So nowadays, after ethnography, when you are following with your this research work, we also do this meta-analysis. As the number of studies on a particular topics increase, researchers are confronted with a new problem: how to synthesize research findings to arrive at general conclusions. For example, consider work on sex differences. I think nowadays we hardly talk about the sex differences. So consider work on sex differences in helping people. Now, Egley and Crowley were the persons. He identified no fewer than 172 separate studies that investigated male and female differences in pro-social behavior. Helping behavior is also called as pro-social behavior. How are researchers to handle this ever-increasing quantity of empirical research? So nowadays, social psychology has also developed a new method called as meta-analysis. The first step is for the researcher to find as many studies as possible on the same topic, using the statistical methods to pool the information from all available studies, and the goal is to arrive at an overall estimate of the size of the finding. So in meta-analysis, statistics are also used to test for the consistency, the homogeneity, the reliability, the validity factor, which is very important. So when results from different studies are found to be highly consistent, researchers can have much confidence in their findings. Okay, all right, 172 research studies, if they are saying there exist sexual differences in helping behavior, and even the meta-analysis are showing the consistent results, it means the differences are existing. When results of meta-analysis are highly consistent or they differ, for example, let's suppose if they differ, then the meta-analysis techniques direct the researchers to look for other important factors. So what if out of 172 research findings, 100 research findings are saying the results, there is some difference. In one study, maybe females are more in helping other person. Maybe in other study, men have that caliber to help. Then we need to direct the researchers to look for the important factors, maybe the situational factors, maybe the extraneous factors that are playing important role that are bringing the inconsistent results. So meta-analysis is a very important tool for understanding, and nowadays 2020, this year, if you look for research studies in different journals, you will find the abstract saying we used meta-analysis technique to formulate our research studies. So I think this will increase the understanding of social behavior and also the social cognition. That's it for today, Tejpal C.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. हाँ जी सर,
मुझे जानकारी है मैम कि अभी आपको दूसरी कक्षा में भी जाना है, तो आज का जो समय दिया आपने उसके लिए विशेष रूप से धन्यवाद। सभी विद्यार्थियों की जानकारी के लिए मैं बता देता हूं कि हमारे कोऑर्डिनेटर मोदी भी अभी हमारे साथ ही हैं और वो भी 2 शब्द बोलना चाहेंगे। साथ ही साथ मैं बता देता हूं, जो ये गूगल मीटिंग की आपके पास जो लिंक आया है ये अगले 3 दिन यही लिंक काम करेगा। इसके लिए कोई अलग से संदेश आपको प्रेषित नहीं किया जाएगा। ये विशेष रूप से ध्यान रखेंगे आप सभी। सेम लिंक रहेगा और इसी लिंक पे आप लोगों को ज्वाइन करना है। मैम आप प्लीज, कोई बात नहीं, आप अपनी नेक्स्ट कक्षा को कर सकते हैं।
जी, थैंक यू सो मच एवरीवन, थैंक्स टू ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स, थैंक यू सर।
मैं आदरणीय डॉक्टर रोशन जी से आग्रह करूंगा कि वो बच्चों को मार्गदर्शन प्रदान करें।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू। हेलो माय डियर लर्नर, good afternoon. Hopefully you are getting some information, and this is my personal request to all of you. You know, I message in between the lecture, this is a heterogeneous group and any teacher cannot go by individual choices. Somebody say pro-social behavior, somebody say which book she is teaching, somebody say wonderful, everything you can give any comment, anything after the class. And if you don't have any study material, soft copies are available on your study material on the eGyan course, right? So wherever you are finding any difficulties, you have my number. You're not getting any study material, you're not getting any books, or for example, not for the study material, but other books almost, I can help you at the personal level even. But when lecture is going on, my young friends, so please focus on the lecture, focus on the topic. And because verbal as well as digital both going on parallelly there, you can note down, right? And you will get the recording, no doubt, that will be available. But just what the immediate cause, you have to focus on that. That is the lecture. The IGNU people especially, they are managing these lectures for you people, because this is a physical classes may not be possible in the future, also one-to-one classes. So only online we can meet you, we can teach you only online. So I know you people are having a lot of problems, but you can message me about the problem and we try our level best to help you there. And this class will continue for another 3 days. At the same time, the paper 4 will be teaching by Dr. Ritu Sekhri, and this will coming 3 years. At the same time, you have to log in and you have to join the class. You will not get any extra message for the same class in coming years. Am I right? So anyone having any queries, any doubt, so you can ask, or you can note down, you send me message. Hello?
जी सर।
Somebody was from second year sitting in the class. They were dropping a message. I don't know how to write the synopsis. The class is going on MAPC1, and the people are dropping the message for MA second year. So this is totally irrelevant. And please, you are mature, enough mature and intelligent also. So please, everybody, I'm requesting to cooperate, please. Right? Thank you for your patience and thank you for joining the good number. And this is the highest number in the regional center Chandigarh in the online class. Almost we have 86, 88 people joined the class. This is the highest number till now in our regional center. So thank you for you people. One and एक और मैसेज था, कोई लिख रहे थे कि somebody is not joining this class, this link. सो तेजपाल जी, उसमें क्या किया जाए? कुछ लोग इस लिंक के थ्रू क्लास ज्वाइन नहीं कर सके इस ईमेल के थ्रू, तो क्या होगा उसके लिए?
नहीं, देखिए ऐसी कोई संभावना नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी कोई बच्चा अगर नहीं कर पा रहा है तो वो टेलीफोनिकली भी कर सकता है इस क्लास को अटेंड। इसमें एक नंबर दिया जाता है, उस नंबर को डायल के, जरूरी नहीं है कि उसने वीडियो देखनी है, वो पूरी की पूरी इस लाइव क्लास की रिकॉर्डिंग उसी टाइम ऑनलाइन सुन सकता है।
ओके। तो नंबर भी दिया है वहां पे, टेलीफोन नंबर भी दिया है और एक ईमेल से नीचे टेलीफोन नंबर दिया है।
बिल्कुल
राइट, टेलीफोन करेंगे, डायल करेंगे, यू कैन लिसन द कंप्लीट लेक्चर देयर। सो वीडियो may not be available there, only the audio will be available there. तो आप या तो ईमेल के थ्रू या टेलीफोन के थ्रू, in any source you can join the class. So hopefully whoever could not join this class, you convey this message to those people. If not possible through email, you can join by telephone also, and the telephone number is written in your message. Okay.